shut up, you listen to my monkey mouth. There's a companion when you got pun on the canoa route. Hopped in a portal and got in a fight, Elias knocked him out. Bow, Naruto fighting style. Bow, UFC he tapped out. Bow, we win, we get crowned. Monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth.
All right, man. Welcome to SUYL. I got a guest in studio. Go ahead and introduce yourself, bud.
Yo, what's up, man? My name is James Garibay. I'm a comic in Austin, Texas.
So we were kind of talking about like what I would say is California drama being kind of introduced to Texas comedy, right? So like, did you keep up with the whole Kalila Bobby Lee thing that was going down?
Yeah, I watched it with my girlfriend. That whole drama. It was funny that Shab went on Schultz's podcast to talk about it. It's crazy how everybody talked about it.
Yeah, man. So like, that's what. So is Schultze's out of California, right?
He's in New York.
Oh, he's in New York. Okay.
He moved to Miami, but he pussied out and moved back to New York.
Man, you gotta love New York to go back, cause like, I mean, he could definitely find a nice gated community in California and literally bunker down there and be pretty comfortable and get away from those cold weather.
Oh yeah.
But you know, you got to be pretty. I guess you got to be pretty gangster to just want to go back and let go of like the beautifulness that's like the coast life. But like, if I were him, man, in all honesty, there's gonna be nothing like the Texas comedy scene within the next 10 years. The Texas comedy scene is gonna be ridiculous. You know, the next 10 years unfolding with the Texas comedy scene is gonna be literally, I'd say, the 80s in comedy style. You know, there's literally going to be...
That's a good call, dude.
Yeah.
It's a really good call.
Yeah, I mean, you're definitely going to have there's definitely going to... And there's going to be a structured kind of segregation in comedy, which is going to be weird. You're definitely going to have, like... I mean, it kind of worked that way in the 80s, though, too, right? Because you had, like, your Louis...
What are you talking... I kind of know what you mean, but what do you mean? But
so, like, you had kind of, like... So, like, in the 80s, you had Louis Anderson, and then you had Andrew Dice Clay. Right? Yeah. So like Louis Anderson was talking about Pops being a little too angry and Mom being a little goofy and brother beating the shit out of him, and it was all family fun. And then you had Andrew Dice Clay, who was like a fucking horse, you know, and he was just like, he was Sly Stallone with a 60s greaser or 50s greaser with Sly Stallone in there, and he had his own like kind of like wild mentality. And then you had Sam Kinison, who wasn't really a fan of Andrew Dice Clay, but they lived in this like dirty comic realm of like, ow, 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 he's screaming, he was wild, he came from the world of evangelical preachers, so he was good to pull in a crowd. And then you had like Louis Anderson, you had trying to think of some like other family friendly comics. I guess I would say, like, even though he's not not in the like, he's like pushed out, but like Bill Cosby, you had like really family friendly comedy. And then you had Eddie Murphy, you know, the 80s and the 80s and like late, like early 90s was this really strange like Venn diagram of like dirty comedians and clean comedians. Like Louis Anderson got a television, like a kids show, you know, and I feel like that's gonna happen the same here, where you're gonna have comedy that's stepping on LGBTQ plus toes, and comedy that's letting that kind of like be centrally focused on keeping comedy overall welcoming to LGBTQ plus, and then you're going to have an overarching that's not going to be LGBTQ plus, right? So there's definitely going to be a clash of comedy where it's not, I wouldn't even say either of it's going to be
I'm on the toes of the LGBTQ plus.
Yeah, so I feel like neither of it's going to be technically family friendly, but most of it's going to be generally like it's going to be weird. You're going to definitely have to find someone who's going to be easy to like sway in between these. I feel like a Nick Swartzen is easy to like play in both realms, because he like when he was on Reno, he was able to play like sexually ambiguous, so you didn't know who, like he was given hand jobs for tacos, but then like he was talking about he'd be able to do like an Adam Sandler movie and be like technically family friendly, right? So like he's able to move in both realms, you know what I mean? So it's going to be kind of interesting if you can live on both planes of existence. You know, what do you think on that? What do you like? You're just kind of listening on that. Like, what do you like? What's your mindset on that?
That's an interesting way to put it. I think, yeah, it's kind of like that already.
You think so? It's like that already?
Yeah.
So like, where do you see that at? Like, I mean, because you're in the
Within 10 years?
Well, no, like you're in the comedy scene now. So like, so do you have like, do you find it like a separate but equal kind of relationship with like what I would say is like middle of the road comedians or comedians who kind of live in this like, oh, I'm going to. Ozzy said it kind of interesting, right? So like, let's just say it like this: there's comedy that pertains to everybody, and then what he called was like comedy that pertains to Hispanics. Are you Hispanic?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like he called it the taco circuit. Right?
Oh, I call them the Orale comics.
Okay, and what is that? Orale comics.
Orale
okay.
comics,
Yeah, orale. Okay, so yeah, it's the same thing like orale comics, right? Where they kind of like their whole existence is to kind of like play to the Spanish thing, but like then you have someone like you, who's like, what I would say is homogenized, right? So you don't have to play the Hispanic card, right? You're just funny for the sake of funny.
Yeah,
right?
I do have a few bits, but it's still.
But you know what I mean? Like you can play like me. I'm like more. I live in this like I'm Hispanic, but I live in this weird realm where it's like I don't speak Spanish, so I kind of like lean towards.
Yeah, I got bullied for that.
Yeah, like
just recently, I got
like most of my friends are white.
Stage.
You know, I don't speak Spanish. Although like the culture wise, like I definitely am Hispanic. Like, I'm more like what you would call is like, you know, Texican. You know, so like all of my stuff goes back into Texas. Doesn't go back into Mexico. You know, so like my lineage is Texas, not Mexico. So it's kind of different for me. You know, so like I don't speak Spanish. 7 generations have been in Texas. You don't really trace my lineage back to Mexico or back to South America way past like 10, 12 years. Like that. You know, between 10 or 12 generations, not years. You know what I mean? So it's pretty strange, man.
Yeah, he's kind of right by that, but I think the pandemic made it like a better level playing field. Like there was like a transition of wealth.
Yeah.
Because like I've only been in this game for 4 years, and I've had a lot of good accomplishments.
Yeah, man. So
with that playing field being evened out, because like they're now like I think that now there's and especially in Texas, there's more of a mixture of like pro and amateur.
Yeah.
At the moment, right? But
well, so you're able to like rub elbows with pros because they're essentially they got kneecapped, right? You know what I mean?
Like knighted.
No, like kneecapped. Like they basically got like the rug pulled out from underneath them. Like you said, COVID kind of evened the playing field. So you could actually run into a Dave Chappelle.
Oh,
and,
yeah,
you know,
absolutely.
You could be at an open mic night and like Dave Chappelle could be like rolling through, you know? And I think that that's pretty cool.
Yeah, dude.
And Rogan brought that here. Rogan essentially since COVID kind of pulled the rug out from the industry and kind of gave everyone put everyone back to zero. Now you can kind of rub elbows with these mainstream comics who literally have a substantial following. Like you could literally pull from Tiger Belly. What's that guy's name?
Bobby Lee.
Huh?
Bobby Lee.
Bobby Lee, yeah.
Bobby Lee, my bad.
Well, not Bobby Lee. I'm sorry. I didn't mean Tiger Belly. I meant the other one. Fighter and the Kid.
Brendan Schaub.
Yeah, like you could literally pull viewers from Brendan Schaub because Brendan Schaub could be doing an open mic at like, you know, one of the comedy shows in and around Austin, right?
Yeah, or it could be a show that you're on too.
That's what I'm saying. So like you could literally, it's even the playing field where you.
Yeah, like yesterday I was on a show with David Lucas and he posted it on his Instagram page.
Yeah, see, so that's.
I was on a show with Ryan Joseph and David Lucas posted it on his Instagram page.
Yeah, so that
shit was dope.
So your reach just hit, you know, instead of like 1,000 people, you have 500,000 people, you know, and it's really cool. Like you got like essentially Joe Rogan made it so that everybody gets to they get to like
have a slice of the pie.
Exactly, dude. I love that. That's pretty neat.
That's one thing I've noticed about Austin is that everybody from like, everybody pretty much got a slice of that Rogan pie.
Yeah.
for the most part.
Yeah, and I mean, as much as like people can love him or hate him or live in this field of like
And then
not really caring to where.
Houston and Dallas will benefit from it too.
Oh, definitely, because like you'll have people who aren't down for that. Down, like as big as Austin feels, it's definitely doesn't feel big. So you'll definitely have like comedians who are gonna be like, it's not big enough for me. It doesn't feel like it doesn't feel like big enough for me. So I'm gonna go to Houston or I'm gonna go to Dallas or So you're definitely gonna feel it. Where
Yeah, Houston's more of a city because they have a Chinatown.
yeah, exactly. You know what I mean? Like, and their cultural zeitgeist there could definitely like the cool thing here is that we're getting Samsung, right? So like you could literally bring someone from California who knows how to make like a Korean fusion dish that like incorporates Tex-Mex with Korean fusion, like with Korean food. Or yeah, I think Samsung's Korean, if I'm not mistaken. I might be really, really upsetting people right now, but you could
at least as long as you say they're Asian, you'll be good.
Yeah, so you could definitely like create a dynamic between those two foods and find out that in and around the Texas Austin area, the Austin, Taylor, Williamson County area, if someone was to come in and say, I have the money to open up a restaurant that could literally encompass both flavors well, you'd be doing awesome here. And I feel that's similar with comedy. If you were to find someone who could pull in the crowd of like, the pull in that crowd of like people who have that same sensibility as him, but still live in this kind of like, American centric kind of lifestyle. If they were to hit big, they would definitely have like their pick of like, comedy and like, how would you say that? Like their pick of like, essentially running the show around here. I think that it would be a good idea now to like, if you're gonna get in and you have that like, instead of the orale circuit, you just have like a circuit that panders to that crowd. It'd be a genius idea,
Yeah, and also just being universally funny.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you can live in both worlds, right? Where you can kind of like pander to your audience but be universally funny. So
sometimes the trigger doesn't. So I mean, I've struggled. But yeah, you could do is being a comedian is about mastering the skill, not just specifically focusing on like, one certain. I worked with a pro that told me that he was like, don't always focus on, because I like seeing dirty stuff.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't focus be dirty, but don't focus on the dirty stuff. Be overall funny.
I think that's you were talking about liking the guy who did Black Phillip. Was it,
Patrice O'Neal.
Patrice O'Neal.
But at the same time, comedy should be 50% of the room horrified, 50% of the room laughing their ass off.
Yeah, and Patrice kind of lived in this world of like truth telling, right?
That's what I draw a lot of my inspiration of my philosophy from him.
Yeah, so like Patrice didn't say something. He wanted to make you laugh, but he also wanted to make you understand that like he wasn't gonna be nice or soft or comfortable. He was gonna say things that were gonna upset people, but he was also gonna make you laugh with it, and which was great. Doug Stanhope does that really well too. Doug Stanhope seems to be able to make someone groan into a laughter. Kind of like be upset into laughter. Doug Stanhope's really great at that.
Yeah. Oh damn, he's the king, dude.
Yeah, he really is. Like, I think who kind of picked up the mantle from that was I said his name before, and then it kind of fell out of my brain. But we were talking about Anthony Jeselnik, but not him per se. But Anthony Jeselnik was kind of one of those strange, dynamic characters that kind of he made his own comedy. You know what I mean? Like he lived in he definitely like paved a way for a different style of comedy, where you could essentially say the most darkest thing, keep it super dry, and then the laughter was there, but it was super uncomfortable. You know what I mean? So he wasn't there for the chuckle. He was there for like the, do I laugh or do I not laugh? And he kind of lived in this like really strange, like loving to see people kind of squirm in their seat to not know what to do. And that was definitely an interesting dynamic to have in a comedy,
He actually does. Yeah, he actually does well though. I've actually never. I wish I could. Honestly, I wish there would be more bad Anthony. I don't think there are any bad Anthony Jeselnik sets, but I would like to see how much he offends people.
I imagine like for him a bad set is laughter. You know what I mean?
What do you mean?
Like laughter is a bad set for him. Like someone literally like cutting ribs is a bad set for Anthony Jeselnik.
You don't like Anthony Jeselnik?
No. What I'm saying is he wants people to be uncomfortable. So like if someone's cracking up laughing, he didn't hit it dark enough.
Oh.
I think Anthony Jeselnik might have even said it himself. Or it might have been Tosh that said it, right? So like you can get 95% of the people to laugh. But then what he's going to do is he's going to cut it to 70%. Then he's going to cut it to 65%. And then he's going to cut it down to like, 50%, 45%, 25%, 15% until he's down to like 5%. So he's literally like chipping away at it and literally cutting out the laughter until he's down to like 5 people laughing. I think Anthony Jeselnik is the same way, where like he's like, no, I'm gonna cut it from, I'm gonna hit the throttle and go from 95% of the people are gonna, if 95% of the people are laughing, I've messed up. I want 15 to 20% of the people to laugh, and then the rest of them to be like, oh my God, how can you say something like that? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I know what you mean. I don't see him as that though.
Huh?
I don't really see him as that though.
You don't? Oh, that's great. Tell me how you see him. I'd love to know. You don't think of him as like someone who's wanting the cringe or wanting to like.
He says he says things for the shock value, but I'll go Patrice. At the same time, he's like a made white guy.
Okay.
Like he wrote for Amy Schumer.
Yeah. But I think anybody can.
Patrice liked doing that. Oh, you're all laughing. I'm gonna go until. Or he'd be at least the opposite way. Yeah. Like he was like, no, I'm bombing, but I'm taking you with me.
yeah. I like that. I'm taking you with me. Yeah. But by the end of it, you're either gonna be walking out or you're gonna be laughing because I got you there. Right.
Yeah.
I like that. That's cool. I'm gonna take you with me. I'm taking the whole audience down with me. That's why I like. I mean, a lot of people talk about like the '80s as being like this really great scene for comedy. I think they gloss over like a really important time for comedy, which
like the
90s, but the mid 2000s. The
mid 2000s were fundamental.
Yeah, I think like you had
the internet.
You had the internet. Peak. So you had like mid 2000s. You got Dane Cook. You got Stephen Lynch.
MySpace.
Yeah, you got the MySpace era. David Cross. You have all of these like really great Patton Oswalt.
He used to be the king of dick jokes. Now he got too woke.
The thing is that he also became a father. He also became someone whose money became paramount to his existence. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah.
Like you'll see Kevin Hart disparage like getting comedy and keeping it what I would say is PG-13. Right, Kevin Hart. But there was probably a certain point in time where Kevin Hart didn't have to keep a PG-13. But then Kevin Hart
actually went up with Patrice, or Patrice knew him as an open micer.
Yeah, exactly right. but then you start working with The Rock, and you're not making $100,000. You're making $100 million.
Fuck yeah.
You're not making $100 million. You're making $300 million. Kevin Hart is now synonymous with comedy that can traverse how would you say that, racial lines. So he can be funny to black, white, Hispanics. He doesn't have to live in a particular realm. He doesn't have to worry about it because he's literally pulling in all the cash. Like the money's all green for him, like there's no worry about it. But then you kind of have to let that like stuff fall by the wayside. There's a great saying like in music, if you haven't sold out, then they're not wanting what you're buying, or they're not wanting to buy what you're selling, right? Yeah. Which like even Doug Stanhope sold out, right?
Yeah.
He did The Man Show. Granted, he did it the last like 2 seasons when it was like, when like Adam and Jimmy walked away from it, right? But he still sold out, you know.
Yeah, that's a corporate paycheck
Exactly, you know, and like even Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan sold out.
for $100 million.
Well, he sold out before that, right? He sold out.
Oh, he's been rich for.
He sold out to News Radio. He sold out to Fear Factor. But why did he do that? So that he had a good span of like what, 10 years, 9 years, where he didn't have to sell out to anybody. He built and grinded and made JRE what it is today, and then he sold out. Spotify wrote him a check. Wouldn't you like that?
Fuck, $100 million? Damn, that'd be tempting.
You know?
But I think, yeah, that compromises you more.
I understand
if you take $100
that.
million, just in this case, because like I'm gonna go the Patrice philosophy.
Yeah.
If somebody hands me a check for $100 million, I owe a favor to somebody. I owe multiple favors.
Yeah, exactly.
And so now here comes, oh, I'm sorry for saying the N word in the somewhat correct context.
Yeah, you're definitely put down a microscope, right? A microscope is
Yeah.
put down, and every aspect of every aspect of like your comedy is scrutinized, right?
Yeah.
And that seems very unhealthy, or very restrictive, right?
He's done all right about keeping his image, or like
But
not giving
you
a fuck.
you got what, 3 kids, a wife. You want the rising tides to lift all boats, right?
Yeah.
It only makes sense that Joe Rogan is essentially thinking, I'm not like, I don't want to sound like I'm like a Joe Rogan dick suck, but what I'm trying to say is that when you become Joe Rogan, and you can, like I said, the rising tide lifts all boats. He was essentially able to come to Austin and buy a theater and rebuild it. Same thing with Dave Chappelle, right? Dave Chappelle didn't sell out at the beginning, but he was able during a certain time when nobody else was running comedy, he was able to like get a field, have it open, work with the restrictions, and he was essentially able to let that rising tide pick up other comedians around him, where they were able to do that. Joe Rogan did the same thing, where he's like, yeah, man, it sucks, and I'm maybe beholden to Spotify. But
What's crazy is that when everybody was doing outside shows, I was so used to doing outside open mics.
Yeah.
To where it was like, it felt like, oh shit, there's a
It
crowd.
felt like home to you, yeah.
There's a crowd.
I think that people were just so eager to
But there's nothing like
feel
a packed room.
normal, right?
Yeah.
So even if it was outside and you're having to show social distance, just the feign normality at least felt good, you know? So I kind of want to jump on this topic, but when you see someone like Kanye West slip into madness, right? You kind of have to ask yourself, like, where the truth lies in all of the things that he's saying. Which one of the things that he said that kind of got me to really feel bad for him in a sense is that we know the how would you say it? We know the shallow surface of Pete Davidson, right? We know the shallow surface of like a somewhat funny, depressed man who is getting to bed Kim Kardashian and essentially, you know, living in her house and falling in love with her and whatever. But then Kanye West sees a predator, someone who is addicted to drugs, someone who is not part of the family dynamic, moving in, and essentially, I think that there's definitely a kernel of truth to that. You know, like he's like, man, I don't feel comfortable with Pete Davidson around my kids. Although I don't feel comfortable with Kanye West around his kids, right? But, you know, that's kind of like, you know, how many stones can you throw at this glass house? They're both glass houses, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You know, so, and it's up to Kim Kardashian to pick who she wants around her children, and I doubt that, he was doing anything torrid or ill intent around the kids, but nonetheless, you have someone who is their actual father saying, I don't particularly like the fact that, he's a degenerate comic who was addicted to a certain drug and heroin addict, right? And how much truth is in that? Is it a kernel?
It's probably a kernel of truth, because I think they're both MK Ultra.
Yeah, I mean, but so I live in this world too that like I get the MK Ultra stuff. I don't buy, like, I buy into distraction more than I buy into, like I said, if everything's a psyop, nothing's a psyop, right? So like if they like, I don't particularly dip my toes in like the MK Ultra stuff or any of those things, because to me personally, I'm living in the Matrix as a full distracted human being, because I'm not wanting to know how the sausage is made. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You get what I'm saying? Like, honestly, do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, like, where most people are like, man, I want to know how the sausage is made, and this is who's making it, and this is what they're doing to us. In all honesty, I think you said it best. Like, the truth lies out there, but we're never going to know about it unless they want us to know about it. And 90% of it's going to be redacted. And there's really, like, I live in this, like, I live in a, where I live in this type of behavior where I have high anxiety and I worry about stuff I can't control. So I talked to this one guy. He was a person who wanted to be who was set to go into the, into being a pastor, right? Into being a priest or a preacher. And I was telling him, dude, like, I'm stressed out about X, Y, and Z, and this thing is like really messing with my mind, and it's not, and I can't seem to like not think about this stuff. And he was like, he goes, there's this great proverb about, a monk in a garden, right? So, or a priest in a garden, right? So the priest is in the garden, and the monk runs up to him and says, preacher, he says his name, he's like, preacher, Jesus has returned. He's returned to earth. What should we do? And he tells the monk, well, there's the mounds on the back end of the garden are collapsing, so I'm going to remake those mounds. I have weeds on the front end of the garden. I'm going to pull those. It's time to plant this particular thing in the garden, which essentially means that if Jesus is coming back, ain't nothing I can do about it but tend to this garden. I'm going to work what's in front of me. So I can have fun and talk about the ridiculous nature of it, but as soon as I try and like put some sort of
make sense of
it or put like MK Ultra on it, it's essentially like like picking up sand. And each one of those things is like a little sand bead of truth, a grain of truth, right? And it's slipping through your hands. I'm never going to be able to pull the truth out of that, right?
Yeah.
And we could even put that back into the garden thing, right? I can sift through the soil of truth, right, and pray to grow something out of it. But that soil is like essentially like nutrient, like there's no nutrients in that, right? No. You're never gonna find the truthiest truth. Yeah.
I did think that out of his entire rant, that was the most truthful thing he said, was that Pete Davidson was a heroin addict.
That's what I'm trying to, yeah. And I do agree with that. Because the other stuff I don't even want to bring up, man. Like, that stuff is like, oh, we can talk about it, but Jesus Christ, man. Like, I could, without saying the J word.
Well, actually, he said, no, never mind. Because I was talking to your friend about it on another podcast.
Yeah, I mean, like, and they can listen to it on that podcast if they're really interested on the wild dynamic of what, like, we all know what he said, right? And we all know that the things that he said were particularly unnecessary to put. Like, it's definitely one of the things that, there's no checks and balances with him. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because essentially
he's full of shit though, because he can't be a billionaire when they're holding his $1 billion.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, there's no checks and balance to him, right?
Yeah.
Because he's essentially like he's
probably got an album coming out. That's why he's doing it.
Exactly, right? There's no checks and balance to him because I'm gonna live.
I'm just waiting for him to come in Alex Jones.
I'm gonna live at an 11. I'm gonna live at an 11. So when I come back down to like a 9, they'll be like, oh, he's still crazy, but man, his music really slaps, and now he's commercially viable again. Because I mean, think about it like this, right? Britney Spears went off the freaking deep end. They went off the fucking deep end. Let's just be honest. In the early,
she had a bad childhood.
Yeah, she went off the deep end along with her sister, right? And then they were all after her money, and they were all abusing her. They were all financially, physically, mentally abusing her, right? And then she finally gets a footing out of the life that they kind of force her to have, and now it's like, well, does she need to go back on a conservatorship? Is she crazy? She's dancing, naked, and they're not allowing. There was a long period of time where she wasn't allowed to be herself. So now she's trying to find out who she is again, right?
Now, Amanda Bynes.
Yeah, exactly. Or who I used to shit on Justin Bieber. I hated that guy, right?
Oh yeah.
I think I despise Justin Bieber, but I'm not the person that he was essentially being pandered to. I'm not a teenage girl, or I wasn't a teenage girl. I was a teenage boy at that time, right? So there wasn't anything for me to grasp on. But on top of that, if you think how strange this is, a 35-year-old man hears you on YouTube singing, comes to you with a blank check, tells you within the next 15 years, you're going to be the hottest thing in the world. You're going to have women throwing themselves at you. It's going to be drugs. And you're going to be in the center of this whirlwind. And you're not going to come out messed up at the end. You're not going to see, things that you're going to say aren't going to seem weird or crazy, because you're could you imagine writing essentially a blank check to a 13-year-old kid and telling him, now don't go out and piss in a bucket or smoke weed or hang out with whores, or you're going to be traversing the globe, behave. He's essentially above everything now. And then you just all of a sudden he's like, I'm out, man. I don't want to do this anymore. I've literally lived in this toured attraction for 15 years, and now I just want to settle down with a wife, and I want to find myself and find religion. And they're like, Justin Bieber's lost it. He doesn't want to be this anymore. He doesn't want to be a pop star. Well, no, he's just kind of leveled out. He's done. He did it.
He got his bag of money.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
Good.
Where he literally lived South Park's, when South Park did the what is it, the game of the Rockstar game, where essentially they're playing the Rockstar game, and then in South Park, they get to live the Rockstar lifestyle, but it's still with the plastic guitars, and they get to they get to go to a crazy music, a crazy rock and roll party with executives, and they're selling themselves, and Stan becomes the pariah, and the other one becomes the famous one, and he ends up selling Stan out and bringing in a new person. He did that on a fast track in a 30-minute show. It's the same thing with Justin Bieber. Justin Bieber basically lived the Motley Crue lifestyle from 13 until 17, right? What else does he have to do? What else does he have?
Nothing. He's hanging out with Skrillex.
That's what I'm saying.
Dope records. He actually has some good what do you call them? B-sides? No, not B-sides.
If that's what you say, if he has
deep cuts.
Deep cuts, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. The same thing with so it's just what does he have left? He's living. He lived his life. He saw the mountaintop, and he was like, there's nothing here.
There's no way more up.
Yeah, but there's nothing here.
Oh, the view is nice, but
Yeah, the view is nice.
but it's a
There's
little
some
bit-
frozen dead
it's
bodies behind me of like pop stars that I had to like walk over, but there's nothing here.
Oh, I bet you he knows some things.
Well, that's what I'm saying. Like, you know, I'm sure he knows plenty of things, but he's out of it. He's done. He's
Married to
where
Baldwin?
huh?
He married a Baldwin.
Yeah, dude, that has to be like, you know, they're staying 1,000 feet away from that shit show.
Yeah, that's.
They're
insane.
they're staying a fucking ocean away from that shit show. Cause like they're still letting the movie come out. Alec, like, he was having apparently a relationship with the director. It is fuckery, fucked. Like there is like insanity on that part.
Yeah, I always say, what's the difference between Alex Baldwin and COVID? One shot.
Dang, that's messed up. And on that note, man, it was a pleasure having you in here. I think we traversed this conversation. I feel like I took the bulk of this conversation, so when you come back, I feel like I took the bulk of this conversation, and I feel next time you definitely, I can definitely get you to open up more and get to be yourself. And for that, I appreciate you coming out. One thing I always ask is, what do you think of the studio?
It's a dope ass setup, man. It's like a little JRE kind of setup. You got young Jamie over here, or he looks like a KG beast.
KGB Jamie.
He looks like a Russian henchman, or like somebody the Batman would beat up.
Well, man, where can we find you, brother?
You can follow me on Instagram at Mexican Elon Musk.
Where did that come from? Mexican Elon Musk.
Well, it's because he's like I'm from Mexico.
Yeah.
So he's from South Africa, or
Yeah,
South
he's from
Africa,
South Africa.
So we're both barely legal.
I love that, man.
And then
Both
what
play
else?
with the
We both have
crypto.
Asperger's.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, 'cause I always try to say that on stage, but I never can make it work for some reason.
you'll get it.
Yeah, I'll get.
I think you'll get it. It'll be funny, you know. Yeah, man. Like I feel how old are you?
29.
20, perfect age. I feel like
How old are you?
I'm 35.
It's a good age.
So like I feel like there's like a touch of like we're all we have like like the millennial generation have this weird thing where our computer is filled with useless information. Like I always joke, like where math and spelling should be, Simpsons references and South Park live, you know? So I definitely feel that, man. I appreciate you coming through. We can find you at the Mexican.
You saying that just kind of made me have like a life before my eyes moment about me entering my 30s.
Well, hopefully you love it, man. 30s is a lot of fun, man. I'll tell you what, man. This kind of happened on the Ones Who Woke Up too. In my 20s, I gave my entire life to cooking. 150%, right? Like I gave everything to cooking. I never wanted to be a chef. I always wanted to be a really quality cook. Like I wanted people to be like, oh yeah, Elias made that. And I had some of that, right? I gave this 100% of the effort, but it also doesn't envelop all of my time. And I've gotten so much more out of this. I get to speak with amazing people like you. I get to have amazing conversations with guys like you, with comedians, with entrepreneurs, all these amazing people. And I maybe give it the same amount of respect and the same amount of attention, but it's paid off, and it's paid off so much more. 30s has given me so much more with the podcasting world than cooking ever did.
Not really.
You know, and so like, do you have anything like that? Like, do you feel like we're not too far off, but did you ever have an instance like that where you were giving it 110% and now you found out that comedy is kind of like where you're doing the same thing, you're giving it 110%, but it's giving you so much more rewarding kind of like outcome?
Like, what do you mean by that?
Like a previous thing before comedy that you kind of like put your heart and soul into, but now comedy's kind of done that for you.
Not really.
Well, that's good, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I appreciate that you kind of got to You got to catch the wave, and you got to like, kind of ride that through, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Like it wasn't until after comedy to where I got like a second kind of like
What?
interest.
And what is that?
Finances.
See, that's awesome, brother.
Yeah,
so
like-
you're living in that crypto world, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, I put a stimulus check in it, and I still have my stimulus check.
As long as you're keeping
So
it,
I'm doing something right.
Yeah, man. So we can find you on the Mexican Elon Musk. What else can we find you on? You're doing a show in.
Yeah, I'm at Hyenas in Fort Worth
Hyenas in
on
Fort
the
Worth.
28th, 10:30 show. It's
All
Saturday
right, brother.
night,
Thank you so much.
Bring a costume.
Appreciate you coming through,
I'm
man.
gonna dress up in whiteface. I'm gonna put on Michael Myers mask.
There we go, brother.
All right, later, guys.
Shut up, you listen to my monkey mouth. There's a companion when you got pun on the canoa route. Hopped in a portal and got in a fight. Elias knocked him out. Bow, Naruto fighting style. Bow, UFC he tapped out. Bow, we win, we get crowned. Monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth, monkey mouth.